All right. How's that?
Good.
It's good. It's good.
Are we famous yet?
Welcome back to the lab.
Welcome, welcome.
All right. Welcome to the TG Lounge. There's recliners on the other side of us here.
Yep.
So you actually chill.
Yeah,
That's where we should be sitting.
that's right. We should. Welcome, guys, to another episode of our TG Wellbeing podcast. And today is episode 2 of diet. We're going to talk carnivore and traditional diets and how they compare. And last week, we talked a little bit about bodybuilding diets, and Elias talked about his experience with his own diet and some inflammatory issues that he's had. And Adam here has started eating carnivore. He's had to put it off for just a bit, but he will be back at it shortly. So, and I, since we talked last, have gone completely carnivore. I was eating some plant fats and some avocado, but I've completely eliminated that at this point, and I'm going to tell you why. But anyway,
I should know why.
Today we're just going to have an organic conversation, some Q&A. I made some notes, but we're just going to talk organically about the carnivore diet and health, the carnivore diet and athletic performance, and the biochemistry and the physiology that indicates how the carnivore diet is species appropriate and how it affects our health and energy and performance in a positive way.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about it.
Yeah.
100%.
So first, let's talk about ketones versus glucose. Big question that comes up is, what about my energy in the gym? Can I push as hard without carbohydrates in my diet? And the answer is absolutely yes. In fact, our cells were designed to run on ketones primarily. We can convert to using glucose, but it's not the primary fuel source that we were genetically designed to be consuming. It's like a backup fuel. Back in the day when we were hunting and gathering, we would mostly eat fatty meat, but if we couldn't find something to kill, then we would have to resort to some plant foods. However, that was very risky because there are toxins in plants, in every plant actually, that can work against our health. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So ketones are more efficient fuel. You are more sustained energetically on ketones. Our muscle cells are not obligate glucose metabolizers. We can function about 80%, 70-80% on ketones with our muscle cells. What happens is the liver has the ability to produce whatever glucose is required for the cell's use and needs. As we talked about on the last video, red blood cells are the only cell that's an obligate glucose metabolizer, and the liver can produce the glucose required for those cells to thrive, and the liver can also produce glucose that's required in addition to the ketones to fuel our muscles. The heart and the brain function more efficiently on ketones primarily. They may need a little bit of glucose, but again, the liver goes through a process called gluconeogenesis, and it takes the carbon structures of the proteins and the fats and breaks it down into the glucose required for life. So the reason this is more efficient is what happens is when we consume carbohydrate, our body digests it. Let's say we consume a complex carbohydrate like a brown rice, for example, or a starchy vegetable. Sweet potato. It goes through a digestive tract, and then once it enters the bloodstream, it's a simple sugar. And what happens is once it reaches the bloodstream as a simple sugar, the body works really hard to get rid of it because it is actually a poison to every cell in our body. So we have what's called insulin, and the pancreas will produce insulin to try and remove that glucose from the blood and draw it into the cell. And at some point, when you're eating, like a high carb diet, for example, the cells become so overwhelmed with glucose that they'll just shut down and they won't allow any more glucose to come in. And that's when we have insulin resistance. We're seeing more and more insulin resistance today. It's on the rise. And what's happening is now that the glucose isn't going into the cell, that it's circulating in the bloodstream and causing glycation. It glycates every cell. It'll cause glycation of red blood cells, and the red blood cells will get backed up, and in the small, arteries of the body, like in the periphery, like the hands, the eyes, and other areas of the body, and will cause damage to those cells and to those organs. Not uncommon for diabetics, type 1 or type 2, that are out of control, to experience peripheral neuropathy, to have slow healing of wounds, just to get sick a lot and to lose their eyesight. And that's why, because of the glucose in the blood that's causing glycation of the red blood cells, that's basically unable to circulate through those small vessels and causing cell death, essentially.
So that's only with the remaining glucose that's in the blood, right? What insulin does not take up and bring into the muscles?
Right. The muscles, the cells can use glucose as fuel. However, it's not efficient, because what happens is it'll use it up, and then the liver has to produce more, right? With ketones, it's a more sustained fuel. Like, for example, when I was having carbs in my diet, I had to eat first thing in the morning every day. I haven't even eaten today because I wasn't hungry. So, you will just organically eat when you're hungry and not eat when you're not. You'll eat till you're stuffed, and then you quit eating, and then you eat again when you're ready to eat again. So,
and that helps. I have another question too, with like gluconeogenesis. If we're not taking in carbohydrates and the liver's, producing glucose for the body, obviously we need the glucose because the liver's creating some through gluconeogenesis for the body, correct?
So we don't need it in our diet, because the liver can take the carbon structures from the protein and the fat to produce the glucose required for life.
Okay.
So that glucose, when it's released, the liver is a very intelligent design. It will produce and release just enough that's required in that moment in time. So let's say you're pushing it hard in the gym. Well, the liver can produce the glucose required in addition to the ketones to fuel your muscles.
So that answers my question. Question I have on that too. If the body's creating that glucose, the necessary amount that we need, if we consume a little bit of carbohydrates, there's a question I have prior to the workout, is the body going to need to go through that gluconeogenesis process?
Right. So then you're not in ketosis, right?
Yeah.
So when you're in ketosis, that means that your carbs are low to negligible. And that means like 10 grams a day or less, right? And I probably eat that because there's a little bit of carbohydrate in animal products, right? Right. Like an egg has probably 1 gram. Depending on how many ounces of meat, you're going to get another gram, right? So let's say like yesterday, I ate 16 eggs.
Yes.
And that's 16 grams of carbs, right? Yeah. But it's a little different than, just eating like a starchy food or a candy bar, because that will cause a surge of glucose into the bloodstream, where in this case, it's not that readily available, right? So on a carnivore diet, you're still going to get some glucose, some carbohydrate in your diet. However, it's going to be utilized differently, and it's going to be enter into the bloodstream differently. And because it's such a slow process, the liver is able to take that up and store it as needed. But it's such a negligible amount that you still are using ketones for fuel, right? Because when you're on a carb-based diet, and which most people are, unless they eat carnivore or keto specifically, a lot of people don't understand what keto is, because they'll say, oh, well, I got these keto snacks from the store, and I'm eating keto cereal, and that's all just a bunch of garbage, basically. Yeah, if you look at the ingredients, it's not keto. It's actually pretty high in carbohydrate. And after I went carnivore and I tried some keto thing just to test it out, I felt horrible. My head was spinning. I felt like I was poisoned. I had to go lay down.
Yeah.
It was just like, if you're not used to eating sweets and you eat something and you just feel like you're going to pass out and need a nap. Yeah, that's exactly the way I felt. And it said keto on it. And it's like, no, this isn't keto. This is BS, basically, is what it is. It's just garbage. So performance-wise, and being an athlete myself, my performance has actually improved in the gym, because I don't have to worry about when I'm fueling myself, because you're constantly producing ketones even if you're not eating, because the healthy state of the human body is actually a fasting state. It's not a fed state. I disagree with the fact that the fed state is what we are designed to function on. It's actually a fasting state that we were designed to function on, because when you're in ketosis, you're still essentially in that fasting state where you're using the fats in your diet for fuel, and that's producing ketones, not glucose, right? So the ketones are very efficiently utilized in the mitochondria of the cell. So what we have is we have a cell. Every cell in our body has what's called mitochondria, and then that's the fuel system. It's like the engine of the cell. Mitochondria is actually a bacteria that we acquired probably millions of years ago, and we made a deal with the mitochondria. So it's a host in our body, but it does a lot of good, because without it we would not have life today. And every metabolic process, every function of our body, of our cell, takes place in the mitochondria. So we have what's called the Krebs cycle and the electron transport chain. I'm not going to geek out too much on the physiology and biochemistry, but these mechanisms can use either glucose or ketones as fuel. However, it was primarily designed to function using ketones, and then the ketones, instead of the glucose, goes through the chain and produces the ATP. It's a much more sustained energy system with the ketones as opposed to the glucose. And we can continue to produce ketones even when we're not eating, but you have to eat to produce glucose. So that's the difference. And if you don't eat, or back in the day when we had to hunt for our food, there might be a couple of days where we didn't come across food. So when we did, we'd eat a lot, and we would just stuff ourselves, and then we would be good to go for a couple more days if we didn't come across a bison or woolly mammoth or
An eyeball.
something.
Yeah. Right?
Animal eyeball.
Even the remains of a kill, where we could actually take a rock and break the skull, because we have that ability, right? So typically, if we come across something that had been consumed by another animal, killed and consumed by another animal, we could still eat the organ meats, because we have the ability with our opposable thumbs and our brain that's much more intelligent than most mammals, to break the skull and get the brains out and to consume those, which is actually very healthy. So if you don't like zombies, well, they've got it figured out, because eating brains is actually smart. It's a smart move. So another thing with being on a carnivore diet is that, as opposed to a standard carbohydrate-based diet, is that muscle gains are exponentially better. What's happening is, when you eat carnivore, when you're eating a carnivore diet that's essentially fats and proteins from animal products, you're producing more cholesterol, right? Cholesterol is primarily what produces hormones. So when our cholesterol goes up, which we actually want, and we've talked about that a little bit, but we can talk more about that. When our cholesterol goes up, then we're producing more hormone naturally. What I'm seeing as a doctor is that I'm seeing even 20 and 30-year-olds come to my clinic with almost negligible testosterone. Almost negligible. I mean, it's scary, because you need hormones to live. And if your hormones are in the tank, then the body basically thinks it's on its way out, and you will just be on a very quick decline toward ill health and then death. Yeah. You cannot live without optimal hormones. And I drive this home every day. People say, well, I don't know if I want to take testosterone, to supplement, because their levels are low. I say, well, it's really required for life. And what we give you exogenously, meaning like through an injectable, is actually bioidentical to what our body produces. It doesn't suppress your own production. Let me tell you something, bro. You're not producing any right now. So let me just put it to you straight. And I had one patient recently who said, I'm not taking my testosterone anymore. I'm just going to see if I can go without it. Good luck, buddy. Yeah. You're not going to go without it, because the reality is you weren't producing it to begin with. And unless you get on board with really making a lifestyle change with going carnivore and getting the carbs out of your diet, you're going to be right back down to square one. Now, one thing I'm seeing with my patients is that their testosterone levels are coming up naturally going carnivore. Like, for example, I had one patient that was older. His testosterone, when we tested it, was 183. And after being carnivore for about 6 months, he doubled his testosterone.
Wow.
Now, 350 is not optimal, but thinking about him being in his 70s and being almost in the tank, and then just through a dietary change being able to double his testosterone,
that's good.
that means that we have to give less exogenously. And that's the goal. We want to minimize how much we give you and maximize how much your body will produce naturally.
Yeah.
So as a result, the gains in the gym are way better. I mean, what's happening is carbohydrates are not an essential nutrient, first of all. It doesn't serve any purpose except to produce glucose for fuel. And it's not a building block. We don't need it to build muscle. We don't need it to build our lipid layer. We don't need it for growth. And it definitely suppresses growth hormone production. So when you get the carbohydrates out of your diet, your growth hormone levels go up, your testosterone levels go up naturally, and you get better results with your workouts.
Yeah.
So,
And my only thing is what you don't see though is any pro bodybuilder that's carb free.
Right.
As far as a person that has a lot of muscle.
Right.
like an open bodybuilder.
You don't see those guys not using carbs. So to an everyday person that's not training at a crazy capacity with a big output, I could see how it could be effective for them. But any athlete that's training, me as I'm putting 100% effort into a workout, I want to have a little quick sugar in my body, whether it's from a sweet potato carb or not, to push my effort there. And I think that's the case with most bodybuilders is we're all good with a little bit of blood sugar because we want to tap into that and push it to the limit. So, I mean, name one pro bodybuilder out there that's just carnivore, no carbs.
And I agree.
That's an extreme amount of muscle, right?
Yeah.
So I think though for an everyday person coming into the gym that's maybe overweight or even just too lean, skinny, that older guy, that the carnivore diet could work really good for that person to put on muscle, but not the extreme trainer. Michael Jordan used to eat crappy like pizza and stuff before games back in like the 90s. And then he was exhausted by the time he'd get to the third, fourth quarter. He was like, dude, I'm freaking ripped. So his coach, famous coach, I read his book, I'm forgetting his name right now, but he put him on, which was completely counterintuitive to what they knew back then. He put him on pasta and steak for his pre-workout or pre-game meal. And guess what? He had sustained energy all the way throughout with the protein slowing down the carb absorption a little bit, and he started being Michael Jordan, you know?
Sure.
So, and he was extreme athlete too, right? So, so I think it depends on the individual and where that effort is being put into without being a doctor. So,
and to bounce off that actually was a question that was coming to my mind, was kind of just literally what you're saying, you know, with carnivore, and it doesn't sound like there's any studies done on this because I agree you can't find an open bodybuilder at least that I'm aware of,
classic
or classic, but
with the more extreme
with the more extreme. I'm just saying open because more extreme amount of muscle. You know, I've never seen one on just carnivore. So the question that I had is, could somebody get to the level of a 280-pound on stage 3% bodybuilder at 5'9" with no carbs?
Yeah.
You know,
so
an example.
Last thing I'll say, Albert Beckles was a vegetarian. He was a vegetarian bodybuilder, but I think he ate eggs. I think he's still vegetarian. He ate eggs, and he might have did fish sometimes. And he was a good bodybuilder, 70s, 80s, crazy peak biceps, and he was pretty much vegetarian. But that's the only other time I've seen. But he still did tremendous amount of carbs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right.
As far as bodybuilder wise goes, since this is the industry we're in, being at TG. So.
Right. Yeah. And that I'd like to test that theory. Now, theoretically, what's happening is that, first of all, they're using a shit ton of anabolics.
Yes, and obviously throw that in there too.
Yeah.
With the anabolics.
Yeah. So they're using a lot of anabolics, and that's really not it's not utilizing the carbohydrate. It's using the fat and the protein to help build that muscle, regardless of how many carbs. The reason they're carbing up is because they want to push hard in the gym. However, they're not fat adapted either. Once you become fat adapted, then you have it's a whole different ball game. And I agree. I have not come across a pro bodybuilder that is completely carnivore. However, I'd like to, if you know anybody, if you're watching and you know somebody, or you have any resources, let us know, because I'd like to test that theory and see if there's anybody out there that has done this.
So potentially, you take a Jay Cutler, a massive 300-pounder, you take away his 1,000 carbs a day, you wait for him to become fat adapted, and then potentially, with the same anabolic usage and all that, see where gains would be.
Right. That would be a great test. Yeah. I just know for myself, I'm not a pro bodybuilder, but I know for myself that my muscle mass improved greatly without me doing anything different. My lean body mass improved, my fat levels went down organically without me doing anything different once I went carnivore, even from keto, because I was still consuming vegetables and things like that.
Right there.
Yeah. So, I can't say one way or the other because we haven't tested that theory, and I'd like to. I bet
there's been some trainer that's done it.
Yeah, I imagine.
Somewhere out there, there's been some bodybuilder that was whatever, keto, whatever, that's kind of, I know there is a lot of CrossFit people that are strict keto, and they have a significant amount of muscle mass, and they have a high output in energy. That's pretty popular in the CrossFit world.
Yeah, and so once you become fat adapted and you're functioning on ketones as opposed to glucose, then it's a different ball game, because like right now for you, for example, when you go in the gym, you need that sugar because you're glucose adapted, you're not fat adapted. So if you became fat adapted, you wouldn't notice the difference.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah, and I've tested the theory myself in that using glucose for fuel in the gym as opposed to using ketones, which I'm primarily functioning on ketones now. I don't have any less energy in pushing my efforts. In fact, I would encourage you to watch Dr. Anthony Chaffee. He was a professional rugby player, and he is.
I was going to say Fauci. I'm like, I'm not going to listen to him.
No, Dr. Anthony Chaffee is a doctor that promotes carnivore on YouTube, and I don't like to name drop too much, but he's somebody that I follow pretty routinely, and I practically live by his philosophies. So he was a professional rugby player, and he's like back when he was 25 and he was traveling around and playing professional rugby, he actually went carnivore, and he had better athletic performance as a carnivore, as opposed to having the carbs in his diet, having a carb-based diet. Even like just sweet potatoes and vegetables, he felt worse with that diet than he did on carnivore. Now, another thing with Dr. Chaffee is that now that he's in his neurosurgery residency, he's super busy. He's got a podcast, this YouTube video that he's running, and then he's in his residency for neurosurgery, and he has a functional medicine practice. So he's a pretty busy guy, so he's not getting workouts in as much. Take a look at him. The guy is a monster in terms of, he's just
muscle.
He's just built. Yeah, he looks like he could step on stage and So
I think that's a crazy thing, and I guess for those bodybuilder guys that have always looked at it as, I got my three main things: I got my fats, my carbs, my protein. And you're thinking about, if I'm manipulating someone's diet or my own diet, I already got one whole thing eliminated now. So it's like, what else do I do?
Right.
As I'm starting to get ready for a show, sure, anabolics, whatever, are going to help to a degree with dropping the body fat.
Right. But
it's still mostly your cardio and your diet that's going to get you there. So it's like, now what else do I take away? And that's where I guess my head is in it, where now I've lost already a major significant food source in the plan. Where else do I pull from?
Right.
Yep.
So what you do is replace those carbs with fats.
More fats.
The fats is what fuels you.
But the fats are going to have to keep coming down as I'm trying to lose fat. Right?
No, because fat doesn't equal fat. So that is a misconception.
But we're going to have to test that to really see if
we already
3% body fat, but you're consuming that much fat.
Right. Well, biologically it does work that way, because you can eat as much as you want on a carnivore diet and not gain extra weight.
So, question I have on that then, and I understand that
extra weight meaning fat weight.
Yeah.
And this is not a debate. We really want to put these things out there
Yep.
to make you as a viewer think about this.
Yep.
And I'm going to talk about what I see clinically as a doctor as well, but these are good theories that need to be tested.
So my question on that, and I know fat, the fat we consume does not equate the fat we're going to have on our body.
Right.
I understand that. And I also understand that, consuming this way, naturally more muscle tissue, naturally less fat.
Right.
But to an extent, the body's going to level out. I mean, otherwise you'd be 3% body fat all the time, ready to be on stage.
You should show some of that fat.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So with a bodybuilder competing in something like, it was something I'm trying to figure out. I have six clients right now that are open to trying this, and they are trying it right now. And they are seeing results, every one of them. So you guys know every one of them is. However,
for a month or so, 6 weeks.
All of them, about a month right now.
Awesome.
And they're seeing results. The biggest thing is at some point the fat tissue is going to stop coming off. The muscle is going to kind of maintain. It's going to level out at some point. So what if we're keeping the diet the same? The only thing I can imagine is keep increasing cardio, and I don't want my clients doing 2 hours of cardio.
No, that's never indicated.
So what I've been trying to figure out with this process, because it's new to me doing this, do I start pulling fats? Like what do I do to where I don't have to increase the cardio so much, but I'm still dropping somewhere? And the same thing that you're talking about. I'm having a hard time balancing this, because I know you've mentioned, eat as much as you can, eat till you're full, and a little bit more when you're eating this way.
It's also counterintuitive to our 6 meals.
Thought. Right. So trying to figure out, some of them right now are 7 weeks out. Some of them are 6 months out. We've got a long way to go. But trying to figure out, how am I going to pull this last bit of fat? How am I going to get them completely dialed in? Yes, they're getting results, but they're not stage ready, and with a regular diet, I know exactly what I need to do, because I've done this for 15 years.
Right.
With this, I'm like, do I just keep their diet, keep the cardio going up? And I know this is kind of new ground, new territory, I think, for all of us in general.
Sure. You feel like crap, but also increase the cardio to make it feel like But if you could eat more and just increase cardio, that might be
so my mind keeps, when I'm looking at their plans, I'm like, well, cardio's going up, diet's the same. I feel like I need to start pulling fats. I'm like, I don't know what else to do.
So first of all, they haven't been on the diet long enough to see the ultimate result they're going to get, right? They shouldn't have a lot of extra body fat on this diet. They should just be gaining lean muscle mass.
Yeah.
And so how do you gain muscle on a carnivore diet? You eat meat, you eat fatty meat, and you lift heavy things. That's how you gain muscle. That's not going to equate to extra fat weight. What you're seeing with the traditional bodybuilding diet is that they carb up, they're bloated, retaining water and fat. So it's water and fat retention. It's not muscle that they're gaining. And then they have to cut, and they think that because of the water and the fat that they're gaining muscle, which is really counterintuitive. Because
depends if that person does stay leaner as they're growing. You know what I mean? So we can gauge that too,
Right.
If there's a person that can stay between 8 to 10% body fat, put on 10 pounds of stage weight this year, really be able to monitor it if they stay lean.
Right.
You know what I mean? And usually that's because they're manipulating carbs lower throughout the off season too.
Right. Yep. So what I've noticed is, like, now that I'm carnivore, and I might have some greens that are on a plate if I go out to eat. I notice it now that my fingers feel tight and I feel a little bloated in the belly. After eating greens. Yeah.
Leafy greens.
Yep. So eliminating that helps too. So with any carbohydrate, if you think about how carbohydrates work, carbohydrates have an affinity toward water, right? And so when we're
1 gram of carbs, they pull 3 grams of water.
Yeah, that's why you need to consume a lot of water when you're on a carb-based diet. So I used to recommend 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons a day.
1 gram of glycogen, excuse me.
Yeah.
Pull in 3 grams of water.
Right, I knew what you meant. So when you eliminate that, fats and proteins do not have an affinity toward water, right? So you're having to consume less water because you're not needing the water to help that glucose, metabolize or whatever. It has an affinity toward the water. The fiber has an affinity toward the water, and it's pulling it all into the gut to move that through, right? Well, and when you're eating a carnivore diet, when you eliminate the carbohydrates from your diet, you're not having that mechanism. You're not needing the water to move fiber through the gut. You just need fat and protein to have good gut health.
And it'll keep pushing it through.
Yeah, and it'll go through just naturally.
Fats are smooth anyway, so that makes sense.
Right. So back to Adam's question, I think you just have to start thinking differently, because you've been thinking this way for so long that you're thinking still in terms of they're consuming carbs, how do I manipulate this? But it's my thoughts that you don't have to manipulate it at all. That by, like, I remember one show, I didn't do cardio, I just cut my carbs and then designed my workout a little differently, so I wasn't pushing as heavy with prep like before the show.
Yeah.
And I was really lean by the time I got to my show. So I think that because they're not gaining the extra fat, right? And they're not retaining the water, that the prep is going to be a completely different game moving forward, because they're going to be able to organically gain more muscle mass on this diet, and they're going to be gaining less fat stores because they're not consuming the carbohydrates. So going into prep, we could test the theory and see if they even have to do anything different. Maybe it's just a matter of designing the workout a little differently right before a show to get them into that leanness that they need to see the striation, because they're not retaining the water, right? So they're not having to do a water dump, and they're not gaining extra fat because it's only glucose that's stored in fat cells. Fat's not stored in fat cells. So that's something that I think we could work with and see how it goes. Yeah. Because I know just naturally with my workouts, I'm eating so much food every day, way more calories than I used to eat, and I'm way leaner. It's weird. It is weird. I know. I'm way leaner. My gains have been better. I've been trying to grow my legs. I've noticed better leg development since I've gone carnivore. It's only been for about 3 or 4 months. Yeah. So from my own experience, I don't think that you're going to have to think the same. You're going to have to start thinking differently in terms of how you work with these people, because they're not going to have the extra fat and the water to cut.
Yeah, well, it's new, so we'll figure it out.
They're not in it far enough at this point. We've got to give it a good 6 months. And at the 6-month mark, I would say that would be a good definitive measure of what the results are going to be, just being carnivore. And then at that point, decide what do we need to do just to fine tune this individual. And I don't know. It's still out there. I don't have the answer yet, but because we haven't tested it that definitively. So I think that would be a really good test and a good marker of how this will work with competitors. Because I think, like Eli, I think like what we're seeing in the bodybuilding world is what we're seeing with the general population, is that the information we've been given is that we need carbohydrates for fuel. So everybody has designed their diet, even if they're not really intending to design it. People that aren't athletes, right? They're just eating crap and wondering why they don't feel good. But in terms of athletic performance, I think that it's just a matter of realizing, hey, we don't need this. We don't need carbohydrate for performance or for fuel or even for muscle gains. Let's switch our way of thinking. Even with the general population, eating ketogenic or carnivore is a new way of thinking, simply because it's only been for the last 5 or 10 generations that we've been eating carbohydrates in our diet. And before that, we were taller, we had more muscle mass. Now we're seeing, height. We're not seeing the same height that we used to see in ancient, civilizations. We're shorter, like by 5 inches. Our jaws are smaller.
There's no Nephilim involved.
Right.
So just developmentally, it just proves to you that fat and meat, proteins and fats are the building blocks of the body. So if you think about what the building blocks is, and you add an anabolic to it, we're talking about like pro bodybuilders that are going to get there, that want to build a lot of mass. You add anabolics to it. The anabolics are working with the proteins and the fats, not the carbohydrates. So and there's a brand of protein powder out there called Carnivore. There's a reason for that. It's because they know, that meat and red meat is the deal in terms of getting the gains. But they haven't yet eliminated the carbohydrate to test that theory, right? So
I bet there is some study out there that does have somebody doing some type of high athletic performance, which is ketogenically, probably a CrossFit person. There's got to be.
There's a pro bodybuilder that's he's natural and he's keto. He has a YouTube channel. Honestly, I can't remember his name on YouTube.
Does he look pretty good? Or?
Yeah, he looks really good. He's not like really big, but he doesn't use anabolics either. So
Right.
I'm wondering if he took what he's doing and added anabolics to it, if he would get the same result as these other guys. So
my whole thing is, like you said, you weren't hungry this morning, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, how do we consistently make sure that protein synthesis is happening for a guy that's trying to do this diet in the bodybuilding world? It's like, does he still eat intuitively that way? I guess it would have to be tested,
Yeah.
So you just eat intuitively and scarf it down in the afternoon and then wait till he's hungry again. And it's like, is that going to proceed to excel gains? Or he probably would still have to consistently be getting in the trickle of aminos all day long, I would imagine.
Yeah. So I know let me just give you an example of what I ate yesterday. I had a total of 16 eggs, total of 16 strips of bacon, and I had some beef hot dogs from Costco. So that's what I ate yesterday.
With the bun, right?
Yeah, I carved up yesterday with those hot dogs, and so that's what I ate, and then tons of butter. I probably, like you get those big blocks of butter like that. I probably went through a third of it yesterday.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of butter because I'm adding butter to every meal to get the fats in because, even if your meat's fatty, it's still not 50-50. So I'm adding butter to that. And I know this may sound gross, but if it's still on my plate, I'll drink it.
A little salt is probably not bad.
Yeah, and you want to salt your food to taste. So that's what I ate yesterday. And I think I had 4 meals yesterday total.
And your cholesterol levels have been good.
Well, I haven't tested it yet.
Well, you've been on it for 4 months now?
Yeah.
You tested it at all?
I'm gonna test it this next month.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but I'll tell you what I'm seeing with my patients. So in terms of cholesterol, they might have the average plant-based diet cholesterol panel, which is like a total cholesterol of maybe 180, and then an HDL, which is heart protective, of maybe 40 something, 47. Their LDL might be 128, which is immune protective, right? We talked about that.
Right behind you. With the website.
Yep. Yeah, you guys can't see it, but I've got my board over here with talking about how cholesterol works. And then their triglycerides might be 128, and their VLDL might be 16, okay? That's not bad. And I know maybe you as a viewer don't understand completely how that works, but I'm going to explain it. So what happens is when my patients go from being having a plant-based diet to carnivore, and over 50% of my patients have gone strict carnivore at this point. So what happens is when we come back and we do their next panel, which is 12 weeks, 3 months, then what we're seeing is an increase in their total cholesterol and their LDL. So we want that. We want higher LDL. Your traditional doctor will throw a statin at a patient if their LDL is over 150, right? And their total cholesterol is over 200. That's bad. That's bad news because we want our LDL to be high because it helps to increase our longevity, prevent chronic disease, and in general, we just don't get sick.
In general population, if they know anything at all, would think that's the exact opposite. The low density lipoprotein, whatever, they'd be like, I need that low. I need that down.
That's the information that's out there, but you have to remember where this information is coming from. It's coming from the food industry and the pharmaceutical companies. There's not a single study that you can access unless you really know where to look. And I know where to look, and I follow people that know where to look. So that's how I find the stuff, to find the studies that really truly show you how cholesterol works. So their total cholesterol will be high, their LDL will be high, their HDL comes up because we want that theoretically over 60, but I like to see it around 75 to 100. And then, but their triglycerides are really low because there's
HDL. Generally, no, we would think that would be higher, right?
It comes up with carnivore diet.
And you got 75 listed on there. Is that
because
a good reading? Like you would like that?
This is just an example of a patient I had. So what we're looking at over here, guys, is one of my patients on carnivore had a total cholesterol of 350, their LDL was 200, their HDL was 75, and then their triglycerides, which is sugar in our diet, right? Really low, 40, and their LDL was 10. Their VLDL was 10. So what happens is the triglycerides and the VLDL go up and down together. So we know if the triglycerides are low, their VLDL is low. Now the VLDL is a marker of cardiovascular risk,
Right.
like what our disease risk is right now. So we want that low.
Like presently viewing.
Like right now,
yeah, okay.
right now, am I going to have a heart attack or stroke? Well, this is my risk. If your VLDL is 10, it's pretty likely no. And then
what is the bad score on that? Like 100?
On the VLDL, anything over 25, I start thinking, we got to get this down. If you look at a lab panel, I think it says 35 or 40, something like that.
Okay, so 100.
So 100 is bad, yeah. VLDL, but I've seen triglycerides up around 750.
Wow.
These people,
Wow.
yeah,
Crazy.
it's just like, okay, we just got to take a deep breath right now.
Triglycerides statistically have always been known as not great, though, right?
Right, but it's not from the fats in our diets like it's been traditionally thought. It's from the carbohydrates in our diet.
Usually it's people that are eating their Doritos and those really highly processed foods are the people with high triglycerides and the MSG and BS like that.
Yeah, not always. Sometimes it's people that are eating what they think are healthy carbs, that their triglycerides are higher. Yeah, it's not usually leafy greens, right?
Yeah.
Because that's pretty negligible. There's other reasons why we shouldn't eat plants, but it's not because of their carbohydrate content. Well, a little bit. A lot of the vegetables that we get in the store, well, every vegetable we get in the store has been hybridized to be higher in carbohydrate. So the reason they've been hybridized and the produce in the store has been hybridized is because it was essentially poisonous before. So they made it less poisonous and higher in carbohydrate for human consumption. So all plants have poisons in them.
Some toxins, yeah.
Yep. And so, we've got the lectins, we've got the oxalates, and we've got the phytochemicals. And some doctors will call them phytonutrients, but it's only a phytonutrient if you're using it to treat a disease, in my opinion, because it's the poisons in the plants that help to treat disease. Once you're out of that disease state, you shouldn't be eating those plant foods anymore, or those herbal formulas, or whatever it is that we're concocting, right? So, and fructose is toxic to every cell in the body. In fact, fructose mimics alcohol in the bloodstream. Fructose, yeah. So you think you're doing good by eating these fruits. Well, you're not. You're actually just poisoning your body, including your brain cells. And so anyway, looking at this cholesterol panel, the LDL came up. I don't have the original. I did originally when I was doing the demonstration, but their LDL came up, their HDL came up, total came up, but the triglycerides went down and the VLDL went down. That is a true definition of health right there. Yeah. And when your cholesterol's high, you're producing your own anabolic hormones, right? Your testosterone and your growth hormone. And these numbers actually, and I've tested this theory with blood work, do actually come up on my patients, even after 3 months.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, that one patient after 6 months doubled his testosterone.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And
at a later age in life, too.
Because he was older, and he probably already jacked himself up a little bit. You think about it, if somebody starts on this diet as a child, they're going to have a way better health outcome than somebody who's trying to treat disease and get healthy.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that they can't have a good long life, but your chances of changing your diet to this way of eating sooner is better. Yeah.
Cool.
That's good to know.
So, but I'm with you, Adam. I don't know. I'd like to test the theory,
We'll find out.
We'll just keep reporting in and see how your clients are doing. And
you're under investigation of it right now. You have a couple case studies live, which is cool.
Yeah. And it'd be good to do before and after pictures too with these people, which I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah, I have weekly pictures every
and
single week.
Measurements and all that.
Yep, every single week.
Test their BMI, all that. And we were going to talk about BMI, but BMI just organically changes on this diet to a leaner body mass and less fat stores. And I have one patient now that also has she's a competitor. Her husband is on this diet too. And he's already lost his belly.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just after about a month or two of being on this diet.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. He just decided to join her, and there you go. He didn't have to do anything different. You don't have to portion control. In fact, let's talk about portion control. We've been led to believe that we have to portion control to lose weight, and we're not. We've kind of transitioned from gaining muscle to weight loss, right? That's why the Jenny Craigs and the what else is out there? Weight Watchers.
Weight Watchers, yeah.
All these diet plans, they say move more and eat less. Well, that's not sustainable. However, what happens is you're also jacking up your metabolism by taking on this way of eating, because you can only do that for so long, and then what happens?
If you eat, you get fat.
Your metabolism's in the tank, and then you start eating normal, what's called normal again, a normal number of calories a day, and then you gain weight exponentially. On a carnivore diet, you don't have to portion control. In fact, like I said, I'm eating way more calories than I did even as keto, and way more calories than when I had a carb-based diet. And I'm leaner, and I have less fat stores on my body.
It makes no sense.
Yeah, it does. I know.
My brain makes no sense.
It just shows that calories just really are not something that we need to concern ourselves with, because a calorie is not a calorie. A calorie from a carbohydrate is not the same as a calorie from a fat or a protein, because the body biochemically utilizes those components differently, right? So when we think our body, the building blocks of our body are made of protein and fats, not carbohydrate, not glucose. Our body does everything it can to get rid of glucose, because it's a poison to every cell in our body. So we just need the carbohydrate and fat for building blocks, and then you add some kind of anabolic stimulus like lifting heavy things or taking anabolics like in the bodybuilding world, you're going to get those muscle gains exponentially. Now, for me, I just eat carnivore and hit the weights, and I'm getting pretty good results myself.
Great.
But I'm not looking to be a bodybuilder. When I competed, I was physique, and I think the physique girls have gotten even bigger today.
Women's physique?
Yeah, way bigger than even when I was competing. So
They are.
yeah, so I probably wouldn't be interested in doing that.
Cool.
And you were talking about when you competed one time and you were carving up, and then you ended up having a not gallbladder, but an appendix attack.
It wasn't necessarily from carving up. It was eating a horrendous amount of bullshit after my show.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? So it was a mixture of a lot of fats.
Yeah.
Of a lot of refined carbohydrates too.
Right.
And still a lot of protein. So it wasn't just carbohydrate. I wasn't carving up on it. It was a mixture of a bunch of BS from all over my diet. After having a super, super clean diet with egg whites, whey protein, meat and turkey, and pretty much just rice and oatmeal for 16 weeks. And then I was eating burger buns, you know, whatever, dude. I throw it all
Sherbet.
Sherbet, whatever, yeah. After the show, and then I just had inflammation in my gut all over in general, and I had appendicitis and had that removed too.
Yeah.
But I still had inflammation in my gut before and after the appendicitis.
Right. Yeah. So, so what I'm seeing with my patients, well, inflammation equals disease, right? And carnivore diet, even a ketogenic or ketovore, which I'll talk about the differences in a minute, are very anti-inflammatory. In fact, going keto, being in ketosis is the most anti-inflammatory state of the human body. So it's carbohydrates are inflammatory because glucose is inflammatory, right? So what happens is, like when I run a food allergy panel on a patient, I never do it until we heal the gut first. Otherwise, everything comes up positive.
That makes sense.
Right, because the gut's inflamed, so everything's passing through the blood, not the blood-brain barrier, but the gut, the gut lining into the bloodstream, and we're getting whole particles of food, we're getting bacteria. So the patient is just inflamed, their immune system is haywire. And so if I did a food sensitivity or food allergy panel without healing the gut first, everything comes up positive, right? So
that's what happened with me right after my appendicitis.
Right. I had this experience
Everything
too.
was super high.
Yeah, years ago, I went to a naturopathic medical doctor, and she ran a food sensitivity panel on me, and a lot of things were coming up positive. Well, those things I was reacting to, but it's because my gut was leaky. And even though I felt I was eating relatively healthy, right?
You probably were.
In my mind, I was not as healthy as I am now. So what I'm seeing with my patients now is once we heal the gut, we get the carbs out of the diet, well, we ran a food sensitivity panel before and did what we thought was healthy and healing the gut. There's a gut healing protocol that I have put my patients on. I don't do it anymore because I have better tools in my toolbox now, right? I used to put them on this very anti-inflammatory diet, and it removed the foods that are commonly considered inflammatory, including plant foods and stuff like that. All right, and then we would come back and we would run the food allergy panel again, and then not as many things would come up positive, right?
Yeah.
So now what I'm seeing is with the carnivore diet, taking it just a step above that, is that when we look at a food sensitivity panel, almost nothing comes up positive. In fact, like for me, I haven't run a food sensitivity panel on myself, but I used to have a horrible reaction to eggs, and it did come up on my panel as positive.
Mm-hmm.
Horrible reaction. And now that I've gone carnivore, I can eat as many eggs as I want.
So weird.
So
And
it was just
no gut inflammation. You feel nothing.
nothing. I have no reaction to it whatsoever. I would just feel like I'd get a respiratory infection. This is how bad it was. Within 3 days, I would have bronchitis, and I'd be really sick. And it's like, that is so weird, right? I mean, how weird is that kind of reaction? Well, now that I'm carnivore, like I said yesterday, I ate 16 eggs. I had zero reaction.
So weird.
And I decided to test the theory. I'm gonna just get all the carbs out of my diet, start eating eggs, and instantly I had no reaction. Instantly.
About how long did it take? You said instantly.
Instantly. I'd already been keto for a while, and I
Okay.
hadn't had any eggs in my diet. So I think I was relatively healthy going into carnivore, but no reaction whatsoever.
There you go.
No reaction. So in terms of gut health and immunity, once the gut is healed, and the carnivore diet is the ultimate gut healing diet. Trust me. We've been using this diet for years for patients with GI disorders such as ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. And it heals them up beautifully. Their symptoms go away. They have perfect bowel movements. Their energy comes back. Their blood panels look good. Why are we stopping there?
Yeah.
Why are doctors stopping there? Well, I'm not, because this is a perfectly sustainable diet. It's species appropriate, and it's the way we've eaten for the last 2.5 million years. And now we think we need carbohydrates in our diet since the 40s, 20s, 30s. I don't know,
Great
somewhere in there.
depression,
Yeah. When
cheap bread,
cheap bread, it's slave food, guys. It's for poor people. If you're starving and you have nothing to live off of, yeah, beans and rice will get you, keep you alive until you get back to an appropriate way of eating. But so that's basically what I'm seeing with gut health and immunity with getting carbohydrates out of the diet. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Mhm.
It's cool information.
Yeah. So another question that's come up with me and patients is, will I be getting enough nutrients with carnivore diet? Because we've been led to believe that vegetables and fruits have all these vitamins and nutrients that we need for life. Well, that's essentially a misconception. Most fruits and vegetables, they may have the nutrients in them, but they're not bioavailable. Yeah, so we're not actually getting a lot of nutrients from vegetables because of the oxalates and the lectins in these plant foods that are blocking and preventing those nutrients from being accessible. So when we consume them, we're just getting the inflammatory properties of the plants, and then the fiber, which our body works hard to get rid of, and that's about it. Beta carotene, there's only maybe a third of the population that can actually convert beta carotene into vitamin A, which we don't need beta carotene, we need vitamin A, right? So most beta carotene isn't even absorbable, like from carrots, for example. We think there's so much beta carotene in carrots. Well, how bioavailable is it, and are you able to convert it to vitamin A? That's the question. Yeah. So yes, animal products provide every vitamin, mineral, and nutrient that you need, essential and non-essential.
So if someone's on a carnivore diet, then would that eliminate the need for like I'm not saying need, but multivitamin, fish oil, things like that?
Yeah. So need is actually the right word, because when you're on a plant-based diet, you need to supplement because you're not getting the vitamins and the minerals that you need essentially for life. Yeah, so my patients, they come in, they'll be on all these supplements thinking that they need them. I say, quit taking the supplements, you don't need them. And these are people that are going strict carnivore, right? What I recommend is an electrolyte supplement, because our soil is very deficient of nutrients, right?
Yeah.
Minerals. Magnesium at bedtime. They take an iodine supplement and vitamin D, and that is absolutely all they take. Unless for some reason for them as an individual, they need something else. And that is it. So there's only 4 things that my patients need. And I say, quit taking all the other garbage.
Vitamin D3.
That's why I said vitamin D.
You did.
I did.
What's the point of iodine?
So every cell in the body requires iodine, not just the thyroid. But what we're also seeing is thyroid function starts to improve when we start giving the iodine.
Supplement it a little bit.
Yeah. I do a 12.5 milligram supplement.
So that's standard.
Yeah, you take it daily. You know, if we're treating cancer or something like that, we would boost it, right?
Okay.
But for the average healthy person, I say average healthy because most people are not. They think they are, right? We put them on an iodine supplement, and then the evidence is that thyroid function improves pretty much across the board. But every cell in the body requires iodine. When we look at women with breast cancer, for example, they have such an iodine deficiency, and also a vitamin D deficiency. Yeah, so these are required to help prevent chronic disease and to keep the cells healthy.
Nice.
Yeah. So you don't need to take a bunch of supplements on this diet. You get everything in your diet, or I should say wave eating. This is not like a quick fix or a temporary thing. This is like you're changing the way you eat for a lifetime. And you know, if once in a while you have something that's not indicated, then
Cinnamon roll.
oh God, no, you don't want to do that. You'd be so sick, dude.
It probably would make you sick, right?
It would make you sick. Yeah. You start dumping sugar into your system after being carnivore, and it's going to be like, you're going to feel like you had the worst hangover ever. Yeah.
So it's a random question. What does a cheat meal look like to you? Do you have cheat meals? Do you have anything that you're splurging with? Or?
You know, I don't, but you know what I did the other day? So I got together with my parents who are also eating carnivore.
Yeah.
And we went out for burgers. Now we got just a burger. I politely ordered a salad, and I didn't eat it. I just said, yeah, just give me a salad with this on it, just because I didn't want to explain to the waiter, hey, I'm not going to eat the salad. Him look at me like, you're not eating the bun, you're not eating the salad. What are you eating? You know. So I had a bacon cheeseburger. So cheese was a splurge because I don't normally eat cheese.
Yeah.
But the cheese is fat.
Yeah,
a little bit of
but it has carbs in it. Yeah,
a little bit of lactose.
it has some lactose in it. So you know, it's something that you could cheat with once in a while.
So basically, she didn't cheat. So if you do cheat, it messes you all up though. As far as energy and just feeling like you make you feel like shit.
Right. You know, I feel so good, and I know what it feels like it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I get up every day. My brain is sharp. I have sustained energy throughout the day.
It's tough for me because I do want to sleep sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's like it would be.
Yeah.
I'd rather just feel hungover from actually being hungover.
Yeah.
Than from eating a freaking cinnamon roll.
Right.
So.
Well, you know why you crave that. You know why you want it, because the signal from your gut. You've got. You've got certain bacteria in your gut that want sugar.
Sure.
And so the things that you like that are sweet, it's when you get that aha moment, like, hey, I could use a cinnamon roll right now. Those microorganisms want to be fed, and they're sending a signal to your brain saying, feed us. And then you're saying cinnamon roll. And then you start going out, because these microorganisms actually dictate the way.
It knows I turn 33 tomorrow. It knows it's my
Your birthday's tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Happy birthday.
And it's signaling to this bakery in Scottsdale saying cinnamon roll.
Cinnamon roll. Okay.
And I think I'm gonna go.
He's getting the cinnamon roll. I'm not going to celebrate his birthday with a cinnamon roll. I'm probably going to have, extra eggs or something.
Yeah,
I'm going to have a steak
with a candle.
With a candle in it, fatty steak, and I'm going to take a video and I'm going to wave and say,
just do a
hey,
hard-boiled egg, put one candle in it, and say, F your cinnamon roll.
F your cinnamon roll, dude. Don't you wish you were me? Don't you wish you were here right now? Yeah. So where were we? Supplements.
Supplements. Yeah.
Do not supplement with cinnamon rolls. So, and you got to experience it really. Once you've been carnivore, just do a challenge for yourself. Go 30 days, beef, butter, bacon, and eggs. Just 30 days. what's 30 days of your life? Eating as much fat and protein.
Butter, bacon, and
Eggs.
eggs. I don't think it's a super hard sell to a lot of people.
Yeah, and most of my patients are like, really? Sign me up.
Yeah.
And I don't have to portion control, sign me up.
Exactly.
And when they come back after, well, I usually see them 12 weeks later, right? When they come back, they say, man, I feel amazing. I don't crave, they might go through a period where they're really craving carbs, but it's like when you're becoming, you're becoming fat adaptive. So once you're using the ketones as fuel, and once your gut microbiome has adapted to the new way of eating, meaning those organisms that are craving sugar die off, and you have very few of them left, right? And then the ones that want the fat and the proteins grow in number.
Is that just bacteria in a
Yeah.
gut that's craving the sugar?
Yep, that's what it is. It's all bacteria, whether it's wanting proteins, fats, or carbohydrate, right? So the bacteria that you want to thrive grow in number, and the ones that you want to reduce in number go away, because when you're not feeding them, they die. That's why they keep sending these signals to your brain, because they're controlling you. It's like the Oz behind the curtain, you know, the wizard behind the curtain, where it's telling you, go out and get sugar, feed me, you know, and then you're like, you're just like a robot. Okay, where's the sugar?
Cinnamon roll.
Yeah, cinnamon roll. Where's the cinnamon roll?
Yep.
So that's essentially when people say, well, man, I really have to have my soda, or I have to have my candy, or whatever. Trust me, just do it for the first 30 days. After 30 days, those cravings go away, and you feel so much better. And then you start getting a different signal from the gut to the brain telling you, I want fatty meat. And when you eat that fatty meat, you might even crave it. I don't know. I'm thinking about bacon and eggs right now. You know, I'm not thinking about cereal, or, you know, even what maybe some people consider a healthy breakfast, like oatmeal with berries on it.
Right.
I have no desire for that whatsoever. In fact, it kind of makes me sick to my stomach thinking about it, you know. So it definitely, the signal that's going to your brain changes when you change your diet to a more ketogenic way of eating.
Crazy.
Yeah. So Eli's going to go have a cinnamon roll tomorrow, but I'm still trying to get him to at least do 30 days of beef, butter, bacon, and eggs.
And maybe I will.
30 days of your life.
Yeah.
Just test it out for us and bring your experience back to the viewers.
I probably will.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, after your birthday.
Yeah.
After your cinnamon roll.
I'm in off season right now anyway, so you know.
It'd be a good time to test that.
It's kind of whatever to give it a shot, but after my treats.
After your birthday treats,
Yep.
right?
My treats.
Well, another individual I watch on YouTube is Dr. Ken Berry. I told you about his videos. He's got probably 800 videos on every medical condition and how the carnivore diet helps it. And his bottom line is, are you human? Then you need to eat an appropriate human diet, regardless of what you're going through, because this is what's going to heal your body. But now see, I forgot where I was going with that.
Just a good little excerpt if you guys want to look them up and research on that.
Yeah. I was going to say something, but now I forgot. Yeah.
I'll give you a card and maybe it'll come out.
All right. Well, never mind. We'll move on to water consumption. How's
All
that
right, let's do it. Let's do it. Speaking of
got your water?
Yeah.
All right. Chug a lug.
I might have Joey coming in at 10 for sure. So if he comes in,
All right.
I only have until 10.
Well, at least you don't have the mic on you. You're going to be
That's right.
out there talking while we're trying to do the video.
Because he's supposed to be here.
Mike.
So.
Okay. Sounds good. What are you getting?
We're just getting some TG regular shirts.
Oh, sweet. I want one.
Some old school road rage and some stuff that you guys will see in 2 weeks.
Yeah. If you guys want t-shirts, hit us up in the comments below. Just let us know. We've got all kinds of good t-shirts for you.
1126 South Gilbert Road. Pick them up.
That's right.
Yep.
Come on in.
Yes, grab one.
Or
when they come in.
Or grab one when you come in, or leave a comment
You
down
grab
below.
one, they buy one.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. All right. So water consumption. So what I've noticed with myself is that I need less water on a daily basis. And what I'm realizing is that because glucose and fiber has an affinity toward water, that you don't need as much water consumption on a carnivore diet. The reason for that is just that you're not consuming the carbs and the fiber that's actually pulling water into your gut, because the reason it pulls water into the gut is because it wants to be expelled. The body wants to get rid of it. And when you don't have the carbs in your diet and the fiber, then what you essentially are consuming is fats and proteins, which do not have an affinity for water. So you're just drinking enough water to hydrate your cells, and yeah,
That makes
so
sense.
yeah, so less water. The recommendation that I used to have, especially living here in Arizona, I used to tell my patients to drink about 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons a day.
Yeah.
They needed it. They really did. Between the heat and the carbs and the fiber in their diet, that amount of water was definitely required. And the way I could gauge it is their EGFR, which is it's a measure on a lab panel of your kidney function. And what I would see is that they would become more hydrated when they come back for their labs. The EGFR would improve. It might be low, like stage 2 or stage 3 kidney dysfunction. I don't call it failure, but dysfunction, because it's just a matter of hydrating would bring that number back up.
Yeah, and that's why it makes sense. Bodybuilder or competitor, for physique, they're peeing a lot more when they're lower carbohydrate towards the end of the show, and they're keeping their water intake high, and you notice yourself start peeing a lot more as they don't need as much water. Technically, even with cardio output, they might have to keep it a little higher. But they're eating less carbs, and generally towards the end of your prep is when you're having trouble sleeping because you're waking up to pee all the time, and if you kept the water the same.
You're probably dumping some water retention too at that point too.
100%.
Yeah. So
dumping some water retention from having less carbs in the diet.
Yep. So the next question is, fiber essential? Well, no, it's not. I mean, fiber is not essential for gut health, and just proving that the carnivore diet has been used for years to help heal ulcerative colitis and Crohn's. Fiber actually works against our gut health. Fiber actually, it's wood, right? And why are we eating wood, first of all? And secondly, it just basically, as it moves through the gut, it creates abrasions in the GI lining. So when you don't have fiber in your diet, the GI lining is actually much healthier and intact. So we don't need fiber. We don't need fiber to have a bowel movement. If you're on a carnivore diet and your bowels are a little hard or you get a little constipated, you just need to increase the fat in your diet. And probably minerals too, like magnesium. That's why I have my patients taking magnesium at bedtime, because first of all, everybody's deficient. And secondly, it can help,
Vitamin A and all that makes you sleep good.
Yeah, helps you sleep good and helps, keeps your gut moving smoothly. So that leads us on to bowel movements. Bowel movements on a carnivore diet are going to be a lot different. Some people will still have daily bowel movements, but sometimes people will have a bowel movement maybe 1 every 3 or 4 days.
Crazy.
Yeah, but they're not constipated, because when they do go to have bowel movement, it's soft, it's easy, and it just comes out, and it's smaller because you don't have a bulk in your
Look like a big piece of bacon.
Doesn't look like a big big brick.
Yeah.
Doesn't look like a big.
I'm proud of my boobs usually.
Yeah. Doesn't look like a big a big snake. You're not clogging the toilet on a carnivore diet.
No, not on a carnivore diet. On my diet now we are, though.
Yeah.
So just go to my house.
I know what I'm going to get you for your birthday. A plunger.
Oh, we got plenty of those.
Oh, okay.
Give me how about a bidet?
A bidet.
so you can rinse that shit off. Huh?
Rinse some shit off.
All right. So bowel movements will be different. Yep. Not constipating unless you're not eating enough fats. And like I tell my patients, if they do get a little constipated, initially I say just bump the fat up in your diet, make sure you're salting your food to taste, and that'll resolve the issue.
Take some magnesium at night.
Yep, take magnesium at night. And we've already kind of talked about energy levels and energy being sustained on this diet.
Yeah.
Because even if we're not eating, we're producing ketones. So once we're in ketosis, like this morning, I have plenty of energy, whereas before I would have had to eat to have energy because I was glucose dependent, right? So now that I'm functioning primarily on ketones, I woke up this morning, I ate kind of late last night too. I had a big meal before I went to bed. And I just feel fine.
That's probably why for a little bit.
Yeah. Yesterday I actually didn't eat till like 2, I think.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And then I had like 4 big meals between 2 and.
So I think with the bodybuilder, you probably just, even if you're not hungry, you probably just keep a little bit more steady stream of protein and fats in your diet.
Yeah, I think
if
so.
If you're trying to have some anabolism out of it.
Yeah.
Is the way I would probably want to implement it. You know what I mean? Just even if you're not hungry, still eat 3 to 4 hours. Keep the anabolism up with the protein and the fats in your body, even if you're not hungry. Just like if you were in off season, with carbs.
Right.
You'd still eat the food even if you weren't hungry.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And with the carnivore diet, because you're absorbing everything, you're absorbing pretty much 98% of all your protein. And the only thing that might spill over is extra fat. If you're eating more fat than what your body needs for fuel, then it's not stored as fat. It just moves through your bowels and you expel it. So, so that's why bowel movements can be less frequent, but some of my patients are having daily or even twice daily bowel movements still on a carnivore diet. And it's just very individual, but you don't get constipated if you do it appropriately. And we don't need water for our bowels to move unless we have fiber in our diet, because it's just creating like a tree trunk in there. You got to hydrate it to get it to go through, Yeah. So, yeah. So, we can move on to how to. Do you guys have any questions about any more questions about the carnivore diet and its indications?
No. My questions have been answered, definitely.
Yeah.
So.
And we're going to continue to bring information to you guys, and maybe at some point we'll do a live Q&A on YouTube once we get enough followers. So hey, if you haven't hit that like and share and subscribe button, do it now, because we definitely want our numbers to go up so that we can come here and do a live Q&A and actually answer people's questions live. That would be cool. A really good next step for this channel. All right, so how to carnivore. How to start a carnivore diet. Well, let me first talk about the difference between keto, ketovore. I didn't coin that phrase. Actually, Dr. Kim Berry's wife, Nisha, coined the phrase ketovore. So I'm not going to take credit for it. I want to put credit where credit is due. And then carnivore. Okay, so the difference is that keto is basically you've got half your plate veg, and then the other half is divided evenly between fats and proteins, right? And we're talking animal fats and proteins. We're not talking tofu, okay? And so, so that's basically keto. And your grams of carbohydrate are essentially below 50. I think that's kind of the general rule, below 50 grams a day. Even though I think 50 is still too high. I think 20 or lower for keto is more of a better measure. And then, so the greens, the veg on your plate is not corn. Corn is not a vegetable. It's not starchy vegetables. It's like green leafy vegetables. So it's almost negligible in carbohydrate. And then ketovore is basically carnivore with an occasional Brussels sprout or avocado added to the diet. And it's typically not daily. It's just, some people might do it daily, but it's just like maybe right around the workout, they might have some avocado or something like that. I was doing that initially. Now I don't do it anymore.
The way I would think I would do it, I'd be like avocado meal with turkey or whatever, you know what I mean? Or avocado meal with my eggs, Yeah. That's what I would think.
Right. So that would be more of a ketovore diet where there's a little bit of veg and plant fats in there, but it's mostly almost completely 50-50 meat and fat, right? Yeah. And then carnivore is just completely animal protein and animal fat.
Base fats.
Yeah. So, and there's different ways to do it. So the best way to do it is for the first, if you want to just try 30 days to start, that's fine. I recommend going 90 days, and you could do, you want to do beef, so you want to do red meat. Bacon is fine. You want to butter your food and as many eggs as you can possibly eat, that you want. Just eat as much as you want and make sure it's 50-50 fat to protein. That's why I add the butter to my diet. To my plate every time to increase the fat content of my meal. Yeah, because even if the fat,
50-50.
right, even if fat's meat, if the meat's fatty, it's still probably not 50-50. So you want to add the butter to increase that number, right?
So counterintuitive to what we all think, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So those are the differences. I typically recommend that patients go completely carnivore to start, especially because we want to get all the plant foods out of their diet to heal them up, because they could still be reacting to a Brussels sprout or to an avocado, for example. And so we want to totally eliminate that. After the 90 days, we can talk about adding some things in, including seafood, because seafood people can have reactions to as well, right? So we'll start.
So that's still part of the carnivore diet.
It is, yep. It's still part of the carnivore diet. So we'll talk about adding seafood in. You want to add things in one by one. If there's some vegetables that you want to try adding back in, we can try that. I don't ever recommend adding fruit back in, or starchy, vegetables like sweet potatoes. But sometimes people want to implement that, and I'll say, we'll try it and see how it goes, but just keep it very low. Don't eat a lot of it, because then you're really jacking your carbs up and getting out of ketosis. Yeah. So just do it for the first 90 days. And then, like I said, we can start looking at adding other foods. And then if you have a reaction, that food is completely out, right? And then that it's not going to work for you. Coffee included. I tell people, go ahead and drink coffee, but once you try eliminating it for 30 days and then add it back in if you have muscle pain or any joint pain, aches, then you know that coffee is working against you. It's not working in your favor.
Still a bean, still a fruit.
Yeah, it's a bean. Yep, it's a fruit.
It's originally a fruit.
So yeah, so for the first 90 days, just strict. And you could also do the lion diet, which is just like steak, salt, and water. That's what it is.
Hunting.
Yeah.
Gotta go hunting.
Yeah, that's right. The lion diet.
We need to go for
Yep.
elk hunting.
Yeah,
Ruminant meat, water, and salt.
right.
That's right. And there are doctors that are doing this diet and have been doing it for a very long time and are just thriving and getting muscle gains too on this diet, because it's just basically.
I'm interested to give it a shot for a month or so. I
Yeah.
can't tell you when. It might be after my birthday, but it'll be my 33-year-old start.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go make some shirts with this guy. I think
Okay.
we're about wrapping up anyway.
Yep. We're about wrapping up.
Guys, we'll catch you next time. Like and subscribe. Guys.
Happy
Boom.
birthday.
Thank
Yep.
you. Appreciate it. All right, guys. I'll let you finish up from there.
All right. Sounds good. All right. So Eli's got to bounce,
Make
but
sure you put my bubbles out of it. You guys missed it. Too bad.
you're not going to be here for the flex either.
I'm covered.
So that's it, guys. That's about enough information for today, I think.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, that was good. Lots of information, covered a lot, learned a lot, always. So
Yep.
thank you, Victoria.
You're welcome. And we want to get the information out there. Those of you that are eating plant-based or even are vegan or vegetarian, I would strongly encourage you to consider this appropriate way of eating for our species. We're not designed to be eating all these plant foods and carbohydrates. It's something that we may know as the norm because we've been generationally programmed to believe this. But just take all the teachings that you've had over the years and just start looking at yourself as, a Homo sapiens sapien.
Mm-hmm.
We got to look at ourselves as a species that we are.
Yep.
Start eating it. Give it a try for yourself and see how it works for you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
All right, Adam. Well, let's wrap it up with the flex.
All right.
All right.
All right. It's time.
It's time.
Boom.
All right. Boom. There it is. We'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Thanks for watching.